Okay, good evening, everyone, and once more, welcome to tonight's session. In this session, we are going to be talking about risk management. Risk management is a method of trying to manage project risk to make sure that we don't derail from our original plan, our original budget, our original timeline. So, but anything that will make us to derail from our agreement when we are starting the project is a risk, and we don't want to see that. And we cannot just sit down and say that it's not going to happen, and we'll start praying that we plan to make sure that it doesn't happen. It's not about praying about it. We have to be practical about it, making sure that it doesn't happen. We have to make provision. We have to have strategy in place, tools in place to make sure that we don't have a risk that is going to derail our projects. A project is like a train. It can be derailed. It's like a vehicle moving at a particular direction. We have to make sure that there is no banana peel on the road. This is what it means. So no matter how good a driver is, and you see a banana peel and you march on that banana peel, there is every tendency you are going to crash. So to make sure that we don't crash, we must make sure that there is people monitoring the road, making sure that there is no such people throwing. If they see you throwing rubbish on the road, you get caught, you go to prison. So these are strategies to make sure that the road is clean and avoid risk. So, but anyway, that is a layman's definition, but it's good to understand it from a layman's definition before you or start understanding it from the professional point of view. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Is
Yes,
it
sir.
anyway?
Okay. Okay, last time there's a lot of noise, a lot of, we want our class to be very disciplined. And so many of you are requesting we do this, we do that to make sure we have a very decent class where people will not be making noise and disrupting the class. You know, we are no longer in nursery school, we are not in primary school, neither we are in secondary school or still in the university. All of us here are adults. So I would leave my class open. But if you become a nuisance, all we need to do is get you out of the class. So that is it. So let me proceed. The risk management we are going to talk about, we are going to lay more emphasis on these tools, RateLog and Risk Register, on how to use it for risk management. If you've not seen a risk register before, this is how a simple risk register will look like. Just something like this is risk register. Or risk register is a more, focused. It focused on risk alone, but risk is not the only thing we need to address in a project. At times, we have issues. Issues is when the risk has happened. When the risk has happened, it needs to be dealt with. And we don't, looking at this risk register, we do not have any place to capture issues. So that's why we're not going to use risk register to manage our project, but we need to talk about it so that you will not say that I didn't tell you about risk register or that risk register do not exist. It do exist, but it's more narrow for me. I need more robust tool that will help us to manage our risk, and that is what is bringing us to RaidLog. Raid is a more bigger tool that will help us to manage risk. So, and when we talk about RAID, this is the RAID log. We are logging RAID, and the RAID R stands for risk, and A here stands for assumption, and I stand for issue, and D stand for dependency. So that is what RAID is all about. And then this is a dashboard. Most of the RAID have a dashboard where when you look at the dashboard, you see how healthy your project is looking at. You see here we have column for risk, column for assumption, column for issue, and column for dependencies. So this is how it works, how it looks like. And we have a template we are going to use. This is our template we are going to be using for this RAID. These are live templates. So, and this is the RAID itself. So anything we log here will be showing on this our template. So let's go back to our lesson notes and try to understand these things, both risk register and RaidLog. Let's understand them in details. So the first thing is to introduce the risk management. Risk management is the process of identifying, assessing, and mitigating potential risk that could negatively impact on a project. It is an essential practice in project management to minimize uncertainties and ensure project success. By managing risk proactively, project team can avoid or reduce issues that could derail project objective, timeline, or budget. Okay, now we've seen what risk management is all about. It's about trying to put up a plan to make sure that we don't have any uncertainty or any factor or element that we derail our project from our original plan, our original objective, our original timeline, our original budget. That is all we are doing as a project manager. You are managing objectives. You are managing timeline and budget. All the effort, documentation is to make sure that these things will deliver this as agreed. But if you just put up all the plans down without putting a plan on how to manage risk, it's going to be difficult, because This is one of the things that always happen. Historically, it happened. We cannot say that it cannot happen. After all, I have, no matter the certification you have, all the certifications, PMI, this Scrum Master, this and that, Mr. Charles Bootcamp, everything is just for you to make sure you manage this project, deliver it on time, within the objective, within the standard, and on budget. Okay, let's look at key risk components, risk management components. In order to manage risk very well, we need to look at these 4 components. We need to understand how to use each of these components to address project issues or risk or whatever. The first thing is to identification, risk identification. You need to first identify that there is a risk. You cannot manage what you do not identify. So risk identification is spotting potential risk that could affect the project. You must have a way of looking at identifying potential risk. Looking at your timeline, if you look at what you have on the table and the timeline, you should be able to gauge to know if you have enough time to be able to finish. Looking at you have started missing a lot of key dates. When you miss key date before, you know that there is potential risk. Or when there is delays, a lot of delays in project deliverables, team members are not delivering their deliverables on time, then it's a red flag for you to know that there is risk of timeline. And when that started happening, that is where it starts. When there is delay, it has a knock-on effect. Knock-on effect is that when there is delay in submitting deliverables, then the timeline will start shifting. And when the timeline starts shifting, then the budget will increase, because if you budgeted to pay workers for 2 months and now the project is now delayed to another month, meaning that you're going to pay workers for 3 months, where are you going to get money for the extra month to pay the workers? So timeline, so all these things need to be managed when identify them. So the main thing is first identification. After identification, then assessment. You assess what you identify. Evaluate the impact and likelihood of that risk. If you are seeing that there is delay, then you have to start identifying them to see the likelihood of that happening. If you don't take urgent measure to make sure that it doesn't happen, it's going to eventually happen. For instance, if there is a couple of delays, if you need to address it, you might say, okay, because of this delay, we have to work overtime in order to mop up this delay, or we have to work on weekend in order to mop up this delay. So it's left for you to see how we are going to do it. So, but these are ways. But first is to evaluate by doing risk assessment. And then the third one is risk mitigation. When you identify risk and do evaluation and see that is likely to happen, you put a planning in motion, planning responses to minimize the impact of that risk. You must plan to minimize the impact. If you can stop it, you stop it. If you can't stop it, then you minimize the impact. That is what we call risk mitigation. When you want to manage it, you have a kind of different mitigation strategies in place, where at times some of the risk, which you know that it might be difficult for you to handle, you can transfer the risk. You see us when you buy a car, we do insurance. That is a risk. We are not praying for a car theft or an accident. That is not the reason why we are having it. But we know that when we're applying on the road, you can be a very good driver. You don't want anybody's trouble. But what about the people that are looking for trouble? You might just park your vehicle and somebody will from nowhere and come and bash your vehicle. That doesn't mean that you are a very reckless driver. You know, so these are some of the reasons why we have to, you know, look for a way to minimize the risk. So if somebody come and bash your vehicle and you have insurance policy, all you need to do is exchange insurance papers, and the insurance companies will take over from that. But if you don't have insurance, what will happen? Then you're going to start fighting. So that is what we call risk mitigation. To find a way to mitigate the impact, making sure we reduce the impact of that risk. Another of the components. I'm very disappointed that after all the plea for some people to be disciplined, some people are still very rude about it. Then we have risk monitoring. It's not enough to do the mitigation, but we have to monitor, continuously track and manage risk throughout the project life cycle. It's essential. Risk management is not a one-off activity. It's not a one-off. It's something that should be done on a regular basis. Whichever methodology you are using to manage your project, whether you are using Agile or Waterfall, there is need for continuous monitoring. So when we use RAID, is very, very important, or even risk register, will have regular meeting at least once every week to capture risk and address it. So that is continuous monitoring. We need to talk about every risk we have. Once we manage the risk, once the risk is no longer there, we close it. But as long as the risk is still on, we leave it open. But we continue to monitor and capture more risk. That way, we should have a healthy project. Okay, at this point, we're going to look at these tools we identified earlier on, and that is RAID log and risk register. As we talk about RAID log, RAID stands for risk, assumption, issue, and dependency. RAID is acronym for this. So when you bring these four elements or items together, we call it RAID. R for risk, A for assumptions, I for issue, and D for dependencies. So the RAID log is a simple, organized document that tracks these four critical elements, providing a holistic view of project threats and considerations. Okay, section in RAID log, we have issue, we have risk. Risk is number one. Risk is potential event that may negatively impact on the project. That is risk. Risk is not something, it has not happened, but there is possibility of happening. It can also, potential is a potential issue. It has not happened, but because it has the chances of happening, we need to make provision that if it eventually happens, we have to cushion the effects. So that is risk. It has not happened. We can manage it very well and even stop it from happening. You see some people after buying a car, they will get insurance policy to cover the vehicle, but they can drive the vehicle for even 20 years, no accident, no car theft, no nothing. So you see the way they bought the house, it doesn't mean that it's happening like this for Mr. A, that is their own. It's not, at times it's not about how careful you are while driving. So, but it's good to put a risk management plan in place, like insurance premium or insurance policy to guard. But so I've seen so many insurance this and it didn't happen. There is a car we bought 2 months, a very brand new vehicle, SUV we bought, and it was insured. 2 months after the procurement of that vehicle, we came out in the morning to go to work and find out that the car has developed a wing and fly away. We try everything to locate this vehicle, call police, do everything, track, nowhere, we couldn't find this vehicle again. But we didn't start crying and killing ourselves because that vehicle was insured. All we did is to contact the insurance company, and the insurance company were able to provide a new vehicle. So because it was insured, if it wasn't insured, that would have been a very big loss. So that is risk. Is potential risk is potential event that may happen, and when it happens, if there is no strategy in place to cushion the effect, the impact is going to be very high. So the next is assumption. Mr. Sheun, put yourself on mute. The next is assumption. Assumption made at the start of the project that could impact outcome if they change. This is something we assume that it should happen. And if it doesn't happen, then the impact could be high. These are assumptions. Like in a food truck, let's give an example. We assume we're going to have enough vendor in food truck, enough vendor, but what if we don't have enough vendor at the end of the day? We know that we can't do anything without vendors, So it's just assumption of getting enough vendor. Looking out, you can see, there are so many vendors, we can approach them. This assumption of having enough. So it's an assumption, something that we, assume that is going to happen within the project. But what if it doesn't happen? It turns out to become a risk or even become an issue. So these are some of the activities we need to monitor, something that can easily become a risk or issue. So then we have issues. Issues are current problems that need immediate attention. It has happened. It's no longer a risk. And it has to be addressed. We eventually run out of timeline. All this we've been planning to make sure that we don't run out of timeline. Yes, this project is meant to run for 3 months. And the 3 months has elapsed and they will still have a lot of things to do. So this has become an issue. So, and it has to be addressed. We can't just, so this is what we call issue, something that has happened. For instance, you do everything to insurance, did a lot of things, put car tracking to make sure that your vehicle, your new vehicle, they don't steal your vehicle or you don't have accident. But eventually, you had an accident. But eventually, they stole your vehicle. This is issue, and you need to address it. So, but when issue happen like this, for instance, the case of car theft, if there is insurance, then you say that it's not going to, the impact is going to be reduced. The only impact here is that the time it might take to, process the insurance outcome or the paperwork involved, it might take like 2 months or even thereabout, and you still go to work. You might be using cab to go to work, extra costs and things like that, and they might provide you with vehicle to use depending on. So, but the point here is that the effect has been cushioned. So the impact has been reduced. So that is issues, a risk that has happened, and you have to address it. Okay, you have dependencies. What are dependencies? When we are doing our project plan, we talk about predecessors. Some people are still struggling to understand predecessors. Dependencies are what a particular deliverable depend on before they can do their work, or before any activity can proceed or can take place. Another activity must happen before it can proceed. So if it doesn't happen, the predecessor do not take place, it's going to be difficult for that activity to take place. So, and when that predecessor is delayed, then the successor will equally, which is the activity that follow up, will equally be delayed. And that is a risk, or it can even become an issue, not just a risk. So you see that issues and risks can emanate from assumptions and from dependencies as well. And that's why we have to identify all these elements and make sure we monitor and manage all these elements. This is other project tasks or resources that the project relies on. So it relies on this particular activity to take place. For instance, having enough vendors. We're looking at, let's use FoodTrackoo. FoodTrackoo is a multi-vendor food and grocery delivery system. Before we can launch, customers can come to FoodTrackoo to do business. We must have vendors, people that are willing to come and sell their food, people that are willing to come and sell their groceries from the platform. So for the projects to launch, we must have enough vendors. And when we don't have enough vendors, that is a problem to us. So launching is dependent on having enough vendors. That is how the easiest way to explain these dependencies in a layman language. So let's talk about risk register at this point. A risk register is a more focused tool dedicated solely to tracking risk within a project. It details each project, its potential impact, likelihood, mitigation plan, and status. So you can see that risk register is all about risk. They talk about risk. But looking at RAID, is risk the only challenge a project might? It's not only risk, we have other things. So that's why we came up with RAID. But let's look at the risk register. The key sections in a risk register will have risk ID. That is a unique identifier for each risk. We have description, a brief description of the risk, category, the type of risk, example, technical, financial, operational risk, likelihood, probability of the risk occurring, impact, severity of the risk, potential impact, mitigation plan, steps to prevent or reduce the risk. Ownership, that risk owner, individual responsible for managing the risk, and status, the current status, whether the risk is open or closed or still in progress. So that is how a risk register looks like. These are key components within risk register. So how do we use a RAID log or a risk register? The first thing is to identify risk and other elements. Begin by brainstorming. We do have a regular meeting. It is during the brainstorming, during the regular meeting, we have to do brainstorming. Brainstorming potential risk with each project team member, consider potential issues across all the project areas. So we look at all the project areas. It's not mathematical. That's why we put this term brainstorming. You look at all the areas and all the project environment. You look at every of them, you brainstorm, look at various things that could cause. So it's a brainstorming session. That's how we start identifying the risk and other elements. And as we're brainstorming and identifying them, we start documenting them. So we document assumptions to clarify the expectation that may later affect project outcome, list issues that has already impacted the project, and record dependencies that may affect project timeline and deliverables. That is on the issue of RAID log. You see here, we capture dependency, we capture issue, assumptions, and the risk. Number two, assess risk assessment. For each risk, evaluate likelihood, example, low, high, medium, and high, and impact, example, minimal, moderate, and severe. That's the likelihood. And do prioritization. Prioritize risks based on their potential to affect the project adversely. A risk should be assessed or prioritized based on the impact, high impact or low impact. High likelihood risk should be addressed first. Develop a mitigation plan. Outline action to prevent each risk from materializing or reduce the effects if it happens. I mentioned insurance. There are so many other, if we brainstorm, there are so many other risk mitigation strategy or plans. So it's either you transfer, you have a risk transfer. Risk transfer is insurance. I use insurance as an example. You know, at times you own the risk, you deal with it. There's nothing you can do about it, so you have to own up. So for assumptions, document contingency plan in case an assumption proves invalid. Talk about assumptions. We identify that in a FoodTrackoo, which is a multi-vendor multi-vendor e-commerce for food and the grocery business or delivery business. If we don't have enough vendors, it's likely that we cannot launch because we rely on people selling something in order to move to the next step, which is launching. But what if we don't have enough vendors? There is still a way we can, meaning that nearest can, FoodTrackoo can have their own dedicated vendor, which it might be them. They have to start selling, not only relying on vendors to come and sell. A FoodTrackoo can have what we call FoodTrackoo Direct, owned by FoodTrackoo, meaning that FoodTrackoo equally sells groceries, and FoodTrackoo have their own restaurants where they sell food as well, and they can equally welcome vendors to come and sell. So if we don't have enough vendors, we can be selling our own products, our own food, and our own groceries. There's so many companies, if you come here, so many of these retailers, they do something like that. They sell. So people order, they go deliver. Like here, we have Sainsbury, we have Asda, we have Tesco. All the time you see their van moving around, doing food delivery, doing grocery delivery. So if we do not have enough vendors, we can decide to be selling as well. And if we have such strategy in place that if we don't have enough vendors, we sell, then when the assumption becomes invalid, we already have a mitigation or contingency plan to cushion the effect. And then track issues with detailed action plan for resolution. We must have action plan to deal with issues that has happened already. So, for instance, if we run out of timeline, it has happened, all we need to do is talk to stakeholders, write for extension, try to buy in stakeholders to show that we can have enough time, or budget as well, make reports, or call it there's this particular statement, call it exceptional circumstance. We use exceptional circumstance documentation or form to request for extension of time or extension or for additional budget. And that we call it exceptional circumstance, meaning that it doesn't happen all the time. So this could be what we can use to, work on a situation where we run out of funds. Exceptional circumstance can help us get more funding, get more timeline, detailing that this is exceptional circumstance. It has happened. For instance, during COVID-19, where a project, we have to go to the office to work, to deliver this project. And during COVID-19, we see there is a lockdown. and we run out of time because of the lockdown, there's nothing we can do here. There is a lockdown, nobody goes out. And not every project that can be done remotely. What if the project is not an IT project that we do remotely? Maybe it's a construction project we go out to do on site. So when you use exceptional, it's a exceptional situation. It doesn't happen all the time. So when you are requesting for extension of time, then it's very obvious because it's not you are making. National, what we call it, natural disaster can happen. This is exceptional situations. So we can use such a situation that's called exceptional. So when there is issues, we have, detailed action plan for a solution. So all we need to do is use a situation like this. So, okay, that is developing mitigation plan. Then assign risk ownership. Every risk, we must assign an owner to that. Somebody must, from the team, come out and manage such situation. We don't just leave it like that. So call it risk ownership. Designate team member to be responsible for each risk or issue. The risk owner will monitor and report on the risk status and execute mitigation. So the way I do things is that in every project we call there is something we call we'll talk about RAID, but RAID meeting we have it every week. Is a statutory meeting that we do have it every week. During the RAID meeting, every risk owner must come and talk about what is going on within the risk you are managing. It's just like you are deliverable, you have to talk about it. Not that you are going to be managing it alone, but you are the leader. You make sure that you own up every strategy to make sure that the risk is mitigated. You drive it, you become the driver of that particular, so you become the owner. But every other team members will be supporting you, who, as a matter of fact, is everybody's risk, but it means you own this particular risk. So every risk must have a risk owner. It's important. So what you do is you assign an ownership to a risk. So assign an ownership to a risk to continuously monitor and take ownership. Then we'll have monitor and update regularly. Like I said, when there is an owner, during the status meeting, you have to update the team. So review the risk log, risk register during project meeting, and update as new risk issues or dependencies emerge. So you have to talk about the one, and then during the risk RAID meeting, we review or do more brainstorming to capture more risk. And those that have been resolved, when we resolve a risk, we close it. So, and any risk that has not been resolved will remain open. So that will give us a clear picture of how healthy our project is looking. By looking at RAID log, you should know how healthy your project is. If your project, if looking at your RAID log or risk register and everything is red, then you should tell yourself the truth, whether your project is, you don't need anybody to tell you your project is not healthy. So that's a simple way to capture risk and manage risk. Either you are using RateLog or using Risk Register. So this is example. Let's look at this example of RateLog for FoodTrackO. For FoodTrackO expansion project. And here we've captured risk, assumption, issue, and dependencies here. So, and we equally give them ID. Sorry, that is the unique identifier. And the first, under the first element, we captured a risk, which is risk out is R001, and we'll do the description. Under the description, this risk is delay in vendor onboarding. And likelihood, we said, is high. The impact is high. The owner, we said, is a project manager. And mitigation action plan, prioritize key vendors, initiate earlier onboarding. So we've seen this as a risk. So we already have a plan to make sure that we don't have delay in onboarding, because if it happens, it's going to be high. And likelihood to happen is high. It's going to happen if we don't do anything about it. So this is mitigation plan to stroke action, and the project manager needs to be updating the team about how this. So it's the duty of the project manager. It could be a business analyst. It could be any other team member. So prioritize key vendors. So we look at key vendors based on the vendors we are targeting, potential vendors. We prioritize them and initiate early onboarding. So we have to start on time and start talking to them in order to onboard them. Because if we don't do that, if we do not onboard them, the impact is going to be high, because we might not be able to launch at the due date. And looking at here, if we do not address this issue, we have to leave it open. Okay. Another here is assumption. Assumption here is sufficient vendors available. We've assumed that we have enough, we have sufficient vendors. And likelihood is medium, and impact is moderate. As you can see here, this one, project manager, because project manager cannot do everything. We can't leave everything for project manager, so we assign this to a business analyst to handle. And we look at someone who have more knowledgeable within that environment to do that. And mitigation is vendor analysis before the expansion. Looking at this is going to involve some level of analysis. That's why we are assigning it to this particular person. And after the analysis, the business analyst validated that actually we have enough vendors. And you can see here, validated, or you can say close. But well, it's not a risk, so we can't say close, but it has been validated. We assume that we are going to have enough, but it's just assumption, we don't know. But the risk, the business analyst can do analysis, conduct analysis, maybe take a survey to find out if we really have enough vendors. So when this is validated, it's to confirm this assumption, and then it's validated that we have enough vendors. Then, and after conducting analysis and we don't have enough vendors, what does it mean? It becomes a risk, and it has to be addressed as a risk at this point. After the analysis, you can convert this assumption to a risk and promote it to become a risk. Because if you don't have enough vendors, and we work on it to make sure that if we address it, it becomes a risk. So looking at the issue, we have issue 001, low customer satisfaction in the new area. Customers are not satisfied. Is it that the food is not sweet enough? We don't know, but the customers are not satisfied. So likelihood medium, impact high, because the highness here is that when the customers are not happy, wahala. So we need customer support. So you can see here we have customers who assign this to find out customer, or you can equally, business analysts can equally handle this kind of thing to find out why there is low customer satisfaction in the new area by carrying out a feasibility study. So here, we'll give this to customer support, but BA can do it as well. If you don't have a customer, we just assign it to BA, analyze, complain, and adjust service quality. You put it, it's still open or ongoing. It's not a risk, but we are still in progress on addressing this. Or you can equally put open here. So the next is dependencies. D001, reliance on local delivery partners. Here is high, and impact is moderate, and logistics lead. If we have logistics lead in our team, well, they will do a better job here. Establish, the mitigation is to establish partnership with reliable vendors or delivery vendors. This you can see here is say pending. So you see how we can use RID to capture various factors that can affect our projects. It's not only risk that has the capacity to disrupt activity in a project. Assumption, issues, dependencies, they are all can turn out to become risk and even a big issue. So, okay, let's look at risk register here. Looking at risk register, we have slow onboarding as risk. Operational, call it operational category here. Likelihood high, impact high, mitigation plan. Initiate vendor selection process early to make sure that this doesn't happen. And this is owned by project manager, and this is still open. And then we have another risk is unreliable local delivery partners, category logistics, likelihood medium, impact high, mitigation, partner with experienced providers and track metrics. And we assign this to logistic lead, and we still open. Then platform downtime due to high demand. When there is high traffic, the traffic when we have a high traffic in a platform, it can reduce the speed, can cause technical, a lot of things happen. So, and this is something that is technical. The impact, the likelihood here is low, and the impact is high, because if it happens, we might find out that our platform is down and people were not able to access the platform. And when this happens, for some people will not, it's going to affect both customers. They want to order for food and they can't access the platform. That's a big risk, you know. Increase server capacity in anticipation of demand. So when we see potential increase in customer, and then we increase our server capacity. And this is purely IT, an IT team lead will have to do mitigation. I think my network is so mitigated. And the fourth one is budget overrun in initial stage. And this is financial, and the impact is moderate. The impact is moderate. All we need to do is set aside contingency fund. So when we are making our project plan, we can't just run our project on the entire budget we have. For instance, we have £10,000 for a project. If we are planning, we have to make a plan within, let's say, £6,000, and we'll keep, or even say £7,000, and then we'll keep 3,000 as contingency. So if we're having a situation of overrun, we'll have something to fall back on, not just to go and start calling the management, we need more funds. They must want to see the plan, the contingency plan. Have we, did we even have a contingency plan? So these are some of the things they will want to see before they release any fund for us. But we've been so reckless that from the beginning we didn't have any contingency, it's going to be difficult to have confidence and releasing more funds. So benefits of using RateLog or risk register: clear documentation, maintain a record of all project risk, issues, assumptions, and dependencies. Risk visibility: highlight critical project risk and assign responsibility for each. Proactive management: enable team to identify and respond to risk before they escalate. And enhance communication: keep stakeholders informed on potential challenges and mitigation efforts. And conclusion: risk management through tools like RAID or Risk Register is vital to ensuring project success. By tracking risk, issue, assumption, and dependencies, project teams can proactively address challenges, communicate transparently with stakeholders, and reduce the likelihood of adverse project outcome. So that's it. And we have a document here we can use for managing our risk, and this is RateLog template. Can use it. So by the time we are starting our project, we already have a template we are going to use, and it's a clean and easy to use, not difficult. So this is a RateLog. You cannot add any issue or risk from the dashboard. Dashboard is just to give you visibility, not to work on. If you want to capture your RAID, go to this log here. You see here, this is Excel document. The first sheet is the dashboard. The second sheet here is the rate log itself. And within the rate log, before you capture anything, you see rate category, you select based on category. And if you want to select, you click on this drop down, you select either risk, either assumption, issue, or dependencies. Like you see here, you select a risk and description is rain. So what it is, discourage our event. So if you're having an event and you know if it's within rainy season, there is a risk. Raining is becoming a risk, so it might rain or it might not rain. So what you need to do, you capture it as a risk, and impact here, it's disorganize the event, and you'll find someone who is more experienced within the team members and assign this. So for instance, if this event is traditional marriage, which is done outdoor, so you see here, the priority here is going to be critical, and once it's critical, you know that something needs to be done. At times we have what we call risk probability number. So you can assign it from yourself. Maybe say in a scale of 1 to 10, you choose a probability number. If it's critical like this, the probability number is going to be high. Maybe assign it 8. If the risk is low, then you assign a low probability number. So, and once you manage the risk, it's either you close or you open. Any risk that has not been addressed, you remain open once you manage it. So for instance, if I say open here, you look, it's open. And once we go, you see this, we have 2 risks that is open, and one is critical and one is high. We'll call it, if it's low, you see low, the color will change. If it's moderate, color will change. But let's say put all of them on critical. And you come to your dashboard, you see on the critical, you have 2 critical, 2 critical risk, and overall 2 critical. And that is showing you that your project is not in a good shape when you have 2 critical issues. Critical is something that can, when it disrupts the project, the consequences or the impact is going to be high. And such situation requires urgent attention. So you see, this document is very simple, but it can help you to capture issues very well and address them very well. So that's how to use RAID. It's a very simple document, but it's very powerful. And that's it for tonight. And if you got any question to ask, time to ask your question. So without wasting time, we're going to call the person raising hand. The first person here is Ngozi E. So
Good evening, sir. Thank you for the training today. when you were going through the slide, you mentioned about budget overrun and the contingency. So when we were doing project planning, you say that we should also include contingency. So my question is, how can we include it in that project plan work breakdown structure that we use Project Library for? Then the second question is, you mentioned the RAID 2. So how can we integrate this RAID 2 when we are using software like project management software like Asana or Monday.com? How can we integrate it? Even in the simplest one in Microsoft, how can we integrate it? Those are my questions.
Integrate RAID in project, like how you integrate RAID in with Asana.
Yes, sir.
Asana is a project collaborative where people come together to manage their projects. So how are you going to integrate your RAID? RAID is a document where you...
No, I said, how are we going to integrate the risk management to like all this our? How can we integrate it into Asana?
It cannot be integrated
Or
into
any other software application.
Well, it is not integratable if it is a document. Okay. So once these are separate tools, you can have a meeting, capture your RAID on your RAID document, and there's is a document. Every of this project management to have a place where you can upload your documents. So how can you integrate a document you need to upload? Well, some of these tools have a way to determine how critical a task they are assigning you to, or when you are delaying, is going to be when there is a project delay, even in project plan. Some of these tools are configured are in a such a way that when there is delay, it's going to send red signals or flag there is delay, which will help you to know when team members are not delivering on time, and you can capture them in you go to your RAID log and capture them there. That's the only way for now you can see that. That's the only way both two documents can work. So, but
okay.
The other one is contingency plan.
Yes, sir.
The contingency plan is a plan is on its own, is a what we call budgeting, costing and budgeting. So what you capture, everything you do, everything is not what you capture. A project plan doesn't give you opportunity to capture a project management tool. I want people to understand that Project Labor is not a project plan. Project Labor is a tool to create part of the project plan. That project where everything cannot come into that Project Labor. You must have other documents. Even this risk management is part of the project plan. Some of them are different documents. So you can't say that everything is going to be on Project Labor, or it doesn't happen that way. But it has to capture some part of the functional budget that is already in use. Contingency is keeping something for the rainy day. It's savings. So it's left for you to know how to, it's captured in your project budgeting or costing, or even within the risk management. You can state it, you can capture this in your risk management plan, that this amount has been kept for so, and we are using so amount. So the only thing you capture in your project plan is the one you are using already. That is it means you plan, you have, for this I say £10,000. You keep through £2,000. Then you use use 3,000, you keep £3,000 and you use £7,000. £7,000 is what you are going to be capturing on your project plan. You are already planning on. That is what you are planning around on. The other one is contingency. It's not part of the immediate project plan. So if there is another situation that you need more money and that 7,000 is not enough, then you replan again. That is when the baseline starts coming in. You capture another, maybe if you added another 1,000, it becomes 8,000. Then you have another baseline to capture the new inject. That is how you have to keep on injecting money whenever the money, till the extent that your contingency plan is no more. Then you have to go and talk to the stakeholders to give you more money. And you show them how you have been trying to manage before they will look at how prudent you are before they can release more money to you. But if they give you £10,000 and you manage everything, no contingency, you have no plan, you have no savings, you squandered everything, they might be looking for another project manager after you. So that is, I hope I've cleared you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Isaac Usanga.
Sorry, sir, you can pass me.
Okay. Okay, Isaac. Thank you for that. Obo Magdalene.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Good evening, sir. So my question is, yes, I understand that the risk register is a document created from Excel. I want to ask, is there any way one can automate it that the risk owners will know that this is what they are supposed to do? Like, how do we automate this risk register for the risk owners to know that this is where they are supposed to handle?
Automate it, how they want to handle, how?
Okay, what I mean is, this risk register, I believe, is created by the project manager, and then the project manager designated the risk to each person. Now, how does this person know that this is what they are supposed to handle? How does he or she, being the project manager, automate it that the risk owners will know that that is where they are to handle? Because it's
Okay.
a personal document by the project manager.
Okay. Okay. Do you know what automation means?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What is automation?
Automation, if I may use a simpler word, is I understand what automation is, but I think I can't explain right now.
Okay. Automation is a system where you automate a repetitive activities, where a software will do so many of the activities where a human input is needed, meaning that that human input is no longer going to be needed. Software will do what human can do. So what we do manually, software does it. Are you getting me?
Yes, sir.
That is automation. So if it's automated, it means the input of the other team members are no longer needed. Are you getting me?
Yes, sir.
Or if you are meaning that maybe automation is that when there is a risk, it's going to pop up, and when it pop up, then it's going to trigger to some team members knowing, then what is the need? If there is this of automation, then where is the need of collaboration as a team member? I talk about meeting, having a meeting. And during RAID meeting, the team will come together and brainstorm about a risk. And within that meeting, they find the risk and they say, okay, we are here as a group. You, because you are very good at risk management, handle this within a meeting. Then why should automation come in at this point?
Okay, maybe I use the wrong word, automate, but actually what I meant is knowing how do I put it, like making the risk owners know that this is what they are to handle.
So
Since
what
it's
is
a personal
what is
document.
the need of having it? It means that there is no meeting at all. If you are not having a meeting, then that's, but as here I made a mention of status meeting. Didn't I make a mention of, didn't I say anything about project RAID meeting being statutory, that it must happen every week, whether you are using trial method or using, if a group are having meeting to discuss about their risk on weekly basis, capturing the risk, and we are there in a meeting, they assign a risk to you, what else do you want the project manager to do to you? To come and start calling you on phone after assigning, or I do not understand that. So there are some certain things we shouldn't be expecting. So once you are part of a meeting and you are asked to do this, you already know. The project manager can equally, because any project document is not, there's another thing I want to clear here. You say that the risk or register or the RAID log is a personal document to the project. Who says that is a personal document? No document is a personal document to anybody. In projects, all the documentation belong, all the document, even the project plan is not, if you know when we discuss project plan, the project plan, you don't do it in isolation. You do it with other team members or stakeholders. Everything is not, it doesn't belong to you as a project manager. That document belongs to the team, and everybody, every team member should have access. And that's why we have collaborative tools where we have project repository. In that project repository, there is a folder or a section where all the documents are uploaded. Every team member have access to every document. It's not restricted to any, as long as you are a team member, you must have access to those documents. So it's not project document, whether RAID log, risk register, project plan is not, it does not belong to the project manager. That you created it doesn't mean that it belongs to you. You created it for that project, and you created it for the consumption of all the team members.
Okay, sir. I understand everything. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. I know we are overshooting our timeline, but let's see Susan Gabriel.
Good evening, Mr. Charles.
Good evening.
Yes, sir. Please, my question is on the contingency. Is there a particular percentage of the budget that should be set aside for contingency?
Well, this is, you use your discretion to see how much you can. It's based on how you are planning. There's no percentage. If there is something you can squeeze out from the original at the start, then whatever you can squeeze out become your contingency. So it just help you to become a good planner, making sure that you are very conservative at the beginning of the project. Trying to save, you can do your contingency. For instance, if you have the opportunity to be the one to hire, you can start looking for, well, it depends on if you have the opportunity to really hire, reduce the amount you pay the people working. If you can get cheaper labor, good. If you can't, good. But you look at areas where you can save money in the project. If it's costing like material cost, you look at how do you, but when you are doing contingency, don't go and start getting substandard or poor quality materials because you want to save. So it's something you have to use your ingenuity to plan as a professional. So but for me, there is no particular percent. It's not, there's no statutory percentage that there must be contingency. You know, it's the best practice, the best way for you to, even if you decide to spend the whole money without contingency and be able to manage and use it without demanding for extra, good and fine. But as a wise project manager, you have to start from, because if I'm the project director and they are coming for more money, I will want to see how you manage the one at your disposal before you are coming for more money. If I'm not convinced you had a good plan, but looking at you coming to tell me, okay, this is my contingency, and you see, I will see how you are, you know, struggling to make sure that the project, at the end of the everything, I find out you couldn't sustain your plan and you needed, they will release fund. But if there is no contingency from the beginning, you just exhaust everything from the first plan, I might not be able to release more funds for you because I can't see good management from your end or prudency. So the answer is, I don't think there is any percentage. You use your initiative to do that as a project manager.
All right, thank you, sir.
Okay, and the last but not the least is Ijoma Onyekachi. Okay, it seems Ijoma is not here, and we'll call it this way. We're going to bring it to an end for this night.
Excuse me, sir. Please,
No,
sir, sorry to interrupt. Since Ijoma is not here,
no.
I have something.
We already exceeded our timeline for this meeting, and I'm not going to. I've given you opportunity to speak. So if you have any more thing you want to say, post it on the timeline. And thank
Sorry,
you.
Mr. Charles. I'm sorry, I was trying to speak. I didn't know I didn't unmute myself. It was a
Okay.
mistake. It won't
Okay.
take long. Thank you very much. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
One of my questions have been answered already. So the second question I have in mind is I just want to be clarified on these risk management tools and the M&E tools, that the monitoring and evaluation tools. Mostly in humanitarian projects, we talk about M&E tools. So,
We're
like for
I'm not talking about any M&E here. We're talking, I want you to restrict whatever to what we have talking about here. I don't know anything about M&E.
okay, sir, I just wanted to be sure that, for instance, SWOT analysis, is it? Can we also make use of that in terms of risk management? Is it a tool also that can be used?
Use the one where we taught you first, and if it's not working, then we'll start talking about. Have you tried to understand the risk management and read log first?
That's what I'm learning. We just learned today. I just learned that. So I just wanted to, like, some things you were mentioning, I'm seeing some similarities. That was why I wanted to like know if it can be used. But
When I teach, I use the best practice. There is in risk management, we were not where there is no tool called M&E, so, and that's why I'm not capturing it. Some people can
okay,
see anything they like. You can read anything on the internet. You can read anything on blog, whatever. I don't know what you are using, but this is what I'm teaching you as the best practice. So if you want to use any other team, which maybe you know before, good and fine if it's working for you. But when you are quoting me, say that I said you should use risk register or read log as the best to manage your risk. If you can capture and understand these two very well, I don't think you are going to have issues as a project manager.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
All right. So thank you everyone for your patience, and I will see you tomorrow within this time.
Thank you, Mr. Charles, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Good
Good night,
night from
everyone.
Nigeria.
Good night, sir.
Mr. Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Charles. Good night.